Hello and welcome to another episode of Bicycle Touring Talk. My name is George Schlacek.
Oh no!
Last time I shared with you what I've learned about making bicycle touring videos. With technology getting better and better and also relatively affordable, I think that recording your bicycle tours is a great idea. It's pretty easy to do once you got some gear. You will look back on your recordings years after the tour and virtually relive the adventures. And you can of course share them with friends or even an unlimited audience here on YouTube. I said it before and I'll say it again. Bicycle touring videos inspire people. They have the potential to change lives. That's why they're so important, even if they're far from perfect. Bicycle tours are stories that need to be told. People need to see that it's possible to travel by bicycle and how almost anyone can do it. In recent years, cameras have gotten a lot better and more compact. While 10 years ago, a resolution of 720p was considered high def, today almost any budget camera can record in 4K. What does it actually mean? Well, modern screens show images made up of pixels. The 720 refers to the vertical number of pixels an image is made up of. When this format was first introduced, thanks to the flat screen technology, it was a huge improvement over the 480 line pictures that an old picture tube TV from the 1990s could display. But once the technology was invented, the only limitation was how much information could be processed in order to show video at 24 or 30 frames per second. Well, that's besides your screen's resolution. Are you watching YouTube on your phone, or tablet, or laptop? Then 720 pixels probably looks really good. If you're watching it on a modern flat screen TV, it probably doesn't. Even TVs have changed a lot in recent years. While many of us still have flat screens with the 1080p resolution, newer ones don't even measure the resolution by the pixels anymore, or they'd actually be called 2160p. The 4K refers to 4 times as many pixels as Full HD, which is 1080p. The actual standard is 3840 or 3840 by 2160 pixels versus 1920 by 1080. My videos are normally in 1080p, which is still appropriate today, but maybe soon that too may be outdated. That's why everyone is buying new gear every few years. Why am I telling you all this? Because in this episode I'm going to show you the cameras I used to record the footage of my Trans-Canada bike tour. The tour was back in 2017. At that time, most cameras I could afford were recording video in 720p. At the time, that seemed perfect, at least to me. I bought this external hard drive with 2 terabytes of storage for the tour, and it seemed like a lot. At the time, for my cross-Canada tour, I had 3 cameras and none of them was particularly high-end. For most video, I used a Nikon Coolpix L32. It has a 1/2.3 inch sensor with 20 megapixel resolution for photos. This camera has a decent lens and it can do 5 times optical zoom. But in hindsight, I know that it would have been better for photos only. Much of my video footage, especially the parts where I used the zoom, is pixelated. Further, the video files were in an AVI format, which probably resulted in a loss of quality when importing them to Final Cut Pro. The camera I used for photos, though, was this old beat-up Canon PowerShot ELF 310 HS. The sensor for that one has only 12 megapixel, but it can actually record video in 1080p, which of course I didn't take advantage of, figuring that 720p was the way to go. I kind of regret this a bit now, but back in the day, and in my mind, 720 was the way to go. Finally, I had my little action camera. This is an SJ4000 from SJCAM. In hindsight, I could have recorded more video with this and played around with the settings. While this isn't quite at the level of a GoPro, it can deliver amazing close-up shots. And it can record in 1080p at 30 frames per second. But again, I used it only in 720p to save on memory. Whatever. Why didn't I use it more for different angles? Most of the time it was mounted on the bike. In Colombia, I actually had it mounted on my rear rack for a good part of the time, getting footage of Barbara, who was following me. What I didn't have was a drone, and quite frankly, that wasn't even on the radar back then. Drones have come a long way since 2017. When I look at the footage from my 2017 tour today, I often wish it would be better. But much of that has nothing to do with the cameras at all. The key to good video, and good photos for that matter, is making the most of ambient light. A more expensive camera will be more forgiving as it has a better dynamic range, meaning that it can capture a bigger variety of shades from completely dark to really bright. But knowing where to point the camera and experimenting with manual settings like shutter speed, aperture, and even focus will give you better results. This can be hard to do when your main focus is always on riding the bike. Getting from here to there and then still worrying about the weather, where to stealth camp, what roads to take, where to stop for lunch, and so on. Camera gear is only one part of the equation, and I would recommend getting the best you can truly afford. I've upgraded somewhat since my Cross Canada tour. My main camera for both photo and video is now a Canon SX730HS. What a tongue twister. This camera is quite ordinary when it comes to the sensor, which has 20 megapixels and is only 1/2.3 inches. However, the crazy thing about it is the 40 times optical zoom. That's an equivalent of 24 to 960 millimeters if it was for an old style 35 millimeter film. This range is way more than anyone really needs, and it's almost not usable unless you use a tripod or a gimbal, for video especially. And that's why I bought my gimbal, a SJCAM M20. I hope I'm saying this right, SJCAM. I will make a separate video to show you what's possible with this combination. But there's a downside to this great zoom. It's mechanical and the lens has to move a lot, allowing air to enter and exit the camera body. The problem with this is that dust can also easily get inside the camera. It's a problem I've been struggling with. I have a video on how to deal with it, but even that's not perfect. As for my action camera, it now is a Campark Extreme V. Originally, I had ordered a newer version of the SJCAM, but the one I got was defective and apparently the last one available at the time, so I ended up getting the Campark instead, which has the same 20 megapixel sensor from Sony. I'm happy with this camera, except in low light, which is where more expensive cameras really shine. Not to forget is my apparently outdated iPhone 8. Wherever I don't want to attract attention, the phone is the perfect camera and it's quite capable. The downside is that it's a phone, and as such, it does way too many things. And then, it's also an iPhone, and the battery is not that great. Sorry Apple, but it's always dead when I try to use it outside when it's cold. Like I said, I think phones do way too many things. Another game changer is the Tascam DR 10L. This little thing is wired and records your voice separately. but the tiny microphone it comes with is super high quality, and the device filters out background noise better than anything I have experienced before. It's made a huge difference, and I would highly recommend it. Well, and then I have a drone. For bicycle touring, I take my DJI Mini 2 with me, even though it isn't truly ideal for that. Yes, I still have a big wish list and will gradually upgrade in the future. My main camera still doesn't record in 4K, and my drone cannot track me. In the next episode of Bicycle Touring Talk, I'd like to tell you about what I think is the best recording gear you can get today, specifically for your bicycle tour. Unfortunately, none of the manufacturers sponsor me, at least not yet. So I have to go simply by my research without offering actual reviews. So it'll be a wish list video, if you will. As usual, there are links in the description to the gear I have or the updated versions of it. Feel free to share your experience or ask me any questions you may have down in the comments. If you need tips on how to record your bicycle tour, watch this video next. It has everything I learned from recording mine condensed into 5 simple tips. See you soon.